So if any of you haven't met me before, I think you likely all have, but if you haven't met me before, I'm the co-founder, chief executive of BSc Education. I'm also the chief executive of the Young Founders School. I run an educational nonprofit for the upskilling of refugees and displaced communities, as well as I do work with MIT as a social entrepreneurship fellow, and I also chair and sit on the boards of several schools. So I've ended up in my working life, I end up with a very broad brush across lots of different areas of education. But my specialization is really looking at skills and how the teaching of learning of skills can be achieved in relation to people moving into going towards the future. And today we're going to talk a little bit about a future of augmented work, which is a topic that, again, that I'm seeing coming up a lot. So in the spirit of us talking about a future of augmented work today, I'm only partly going to introduce the, 1 second, sorry. Can you guys see my screen? So it'll only be partly me introducing the session because, first of all, I'm going to ask a different version of myself to introduce the session.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. In this webinar, we'll take a closer look at how automation, AI, and digital platforms are reshaping the workplace. You'll gain insights into the tools and trends driving augmented working and what it means for the future of your role, your team, and your career. Let's get started.
So thanks, Chris, for introducing the website, the webinar to everyone. But let's
欢迎您，感谢您今天的参与。在本次网络研讨会中，我们将深入探讨自动化、人工智能和数字平台如何重塑职场。您将深入了解推动增强工作的工具和趋势，以及它对您的职位、团队和职业生涯的未来意义。让我们开始吧。
So I doubt anyone necessarily understood the second one, but according to close friends of mine, the Chinese in the second version of me is 99% perfect, and the accent is apparently also extremely good. So, you know, today, am I presenting here, or am I presenting in 3 different places at the same time? Who actually knows? To put together a presentation, to put together those 2 videos takes 20 seconds. To train a digital version of myself took 39 seconds. To write a script to introduce this workshop, a 20-second script to introduce this workshop, took about 3 seconds. So this is a way that I could right now effectively deliver this workshop in 10 different countries, in 10 different languages at the same time. And I could have an AI agent in every different, I could have a free AI agent in every different workshop on my behalf, and I could sit monitoring questions. It could transcribe the questions for me. And so I could be in 10 places at one time. Now, today, you have got the pleasure of my company, but you know, in the future, is that going to be the case? We'll see.
Welcome. 欢迎。
So one of the things that we've said for a long, long time at BSD, of course, with BSD, we've been doing what we've been doing for 12 years. Okay. There have been, I mean, AI is right on the cutting edge now, and that's something that we're seeing all of the time. But from when we started BSD, I think in the first 5 years we started, JavaScript reversioned 6 times. You know, software as a service became platform as a service. The concept of digital transformation was born. And one of our reflections was when we looked at just such a broad brush of technology disciplines and the intersection of technology and the world of work. For the last 12 years, we've been saying that not everyone's going to be a programmer. And I think that's more true than today than ever before. Yeah. If you look at the way that AI is impacting the way that people work and the way that technologies are going, you're not going to see more than 3% of the technology workforce as actual programmers. The number of actual programmers doing what you would call traditional software development is going to continually decrease. And we're also moving into an era where those type of developers don't necessarily know the outcomes of what they're developing, because they're developing into a black box. From there, we're moving into an era where we're going to have a partnership between the programmers and the machines. So they're not technically operating as programmers anymore. They're more acting as maybe AI translators or AI quality assurance professionals. But of course, what we know is every single role now, just simply as we saw just 1 second ago, the presenter is somebody who does regular presentations, business development, marketing, product development. Everything now is going to be augmented with technology and the thing is, nowadays, everybody that you bring into your business, to an extent, you're going to be thinking, how good a technologist are they? There are lots of data about this. The data hasn't changed. It's probably getting worse. But there are over 85 million unfilled jobs. And I think that when we look at the type of world we're in at the moment, I don't think, we've seen such a paradigm shift, multiple times in the last 10 years. No country can afford to undermine a multi-trillion-dollar imperative for their economies. Yeah, it's a multi-trillion-dollar imperative globally, but in every country around the world, the country that is at the cutting edge of digital technology and professional talent, which is augmented and AI augmented workforce, that is the place that is going to make add hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to its GDP. AI is already affecting graduate hiring. I know in my own hiring practices that I'm actively looking to say, well, should I be spending more money on AI credit, or should I be spending more money on bringing in a graduate? And I think with this, I'm seeing in so many places and so many different roles now, where if the basics can be done by AI, I don't need to recruit until people have got 3 to 5 years of experience. Now that's dangerous, because in the end, we're going to run out of people with 3 to 5 years of experience, because there'll be too much of a gap. Okay. And so, but what that possibly means is that if you're graduating from school and going to the workforce, or if you're graduating from university or college and going to the workforce, you need to be coming in nowadays with the capability to deliver from day one. And if you haven't had time to learn it yourself, you're going to need to lean on AI to make up for your shortcomings, so then you can step in effectively with an accelerated level of experience. Otherwise, other students are going to do that. They're going to get the graduate jobs. And we're already suffering internationally with a bit of a pandemic of particularly university graduate underemployment. AI is going to make this worse for the students that are not embracing the idea of augmented working practices from the start. And this isn't new. Yeah, so it's 2025 now. And this has been happening for years. GPT was released in 2018 and it reversioned in 2021. It was incorporated into software development practices in at the beginning of 2020. So, and this defining the skills citizens will need in the future of work was a piece of writing done by McKinsey in 2021, which I personally found very insightful. And they looked across 56 different skill sets. Something I liked about this study was it looked beyond America and Europe. It looked across 18, 19 different countries all around the world. And they, in 2021, before all of the AI developments that we're seeing today had expanded into the public domain, they spoke about the imperative for going into the workforce, for progressing into the workforce, is adding value beyond what can be done by automated systems and intelligent machines. Yeah. So you need to have a partnership with the machine, and then you need to understand how to express your value beyond what that machine brings to the table. It's imperative to be operating in a digital environment. And we need to continue to adapt to work with new ways of working in new occupations. I don't think anyone can deny that adapting to new ways of working is something that we're seeing every month at the moment. And that's not just about being being on top of all of the information. Oh, what's the new product that's been released? It's not about that. It's understanding how the developments in technology can be incorporated into the way that you do your work. Yeah, we all have a workflow. We all have a natural workflow that we go about our day. And how can we make that easier, shortcut that, give ourselves more time? And a really interesting point, a great friend of mine said years ago, and he was working in the big world of private equity, and then he went into the world of entrepreneurship, and he said the biggest thing that he lost was when he went from a really big organization where a lot of stuff was done for him. Yeah. And nowadays we can all have things done for us. But when in those days when he was getting a lot of things done for him, he said he had time to think. He never went into a meeting unprepared. He never went into a meeting without the answers to the questions he needed and the questions that he needed answers to. He said that was a huge advantage. When he became an entrepreneur, he didn't have that time. Now we can get that time back. The people who are going in to those meetings with the time that they've come back, they've had the time to think, they're going to have an advantage. Okay. Another thing that this article by McKinsey said was that soft skills get you hired, digital skills get you paid more money. You know, many countries around the world are stagnant. Yeah, many countries around the world have not had salary increases. Yeah, you can't rely on governments to nurture your economy. You've got to take it into your own hands. So we're looking at top skills employers are desperate for next. So, and I remember I just said to you guys, the soft skills is what gets you hired, and the digital skills is what gets you paid. So when we're looking at these top skills, communication, collaboration, problem solving, ideation, leadership, these are the ones that I did a bit of a grab from lots of different industries. So when I grab lists like this, what I tend to do is I tend to look at what is academia saying, I look at what's business saying, and then I look at what the international organizations are saying. So the international organizations being people like World Economic Forum, business being people like the recruitment industry and corporates that are recruiting, and then academia being schools, universities, etc. And then I crunch all of that information together and I get an average list. And this is the average list that I've seen for 2025 at the moment. Okay. But what I would say amongst all of these is there are two that I'm seeing in my own teams and the teams that work for me as being the most important. Yeah. The world, there's so much volatility, there's so much change that we can't do it all ourselves. We can't know everything ourselves. So we've got to be so collaborative with each other. Yeah, we've got to share so much. Hey, I found a new thing. I've tried this. This is working for me. What's working for you? Okay. So we've got to operate in an environment of dynamic collaboration where daily people within businesses are sharing practices. So we all can continue to evolve our practice together. And we're not only evolving for ourselves, but we're evolving the way that we collaborate and that we teamwork. And I'm going to come back to that when we talk a little about automation. And then the second thing is self-learning. Yeah. And it's funny because it's so easy to say, well, I don't have time for self-learning. But the thing is, because of AI, you can now self-learn more easily as well. Yeah. If there's a concept you're trying to understand, drill it down and get it to explain it to you in a simple way. I personally, if I want to know something complicated now, simple thing, I can drop whatever I want complicated into an AI that I'm able to read where I am in the world. And I ask it, please explain this to me as if you're explaining it to a 12-year-old. And then I can digest it really fast. I can always come back to that and get something more sophisticated. But again, with the self-learning, there's no excuse anymore. And it's more and more critical than ever. Because if you get left behind in the era that we're in at the moment, you're not, being 3 months behind nowadays is like being 2 years behind 5 years ago. And that was only 5 years ago. We're also looking at these other skills. So if I'm looking at technical skills, yeah, artificial intelligence, automation, data analytics, cloud computing, digital marketing, cybersecurity, cloud computing, design, content creation, product management. Yeah. Those are the top 10 that I'm seeing, again, from that education, industry, and international organization intersection. But what I want to do with those is as well, I want to narrow it down to two: AI, automation. Yeah, I've talked enough about AI because we're talking here about augmented working. Yeah, we're talking about us not just doing our job as a human being, but intelligently integrating into the way that we go about our daily lives and the work that we do those AI tools and how they can help us. But then also, because of this, another area that has really exploded recently, and that there are so many new tools that have come up, is the area of automation. Okay, because as well, I'm not going to have time in a few years' time when something that I'm doing happens. I'm not going to have time to tell you about it. So as I use AI, I need to intelligently identify, or use the AI to identify the communication that I need to make with others. And I need to use automation to move information to the right places for me. And what's important is these automation tools are not something that you need to be. I said to you, 3%, 4% of people are going to be engineers. None of these tools I'm talking about here require any form of engineering knowledge. They require a bit of self-learning. Okay, they do require a bit of self-learning, but there is no advanced mathematics required. There is no advanced programming knowledge required. Okay, if you take automation to a very high level, then you do start to need some basics, like the types of the fundamentals of the programming fundamentals that you learn from BSc become quite quickly important, and I'll come to that. But you can get into the idea of automation without any experience at all, and you can self-study it very quickly. So AI, automation, self-learning, and collaboration are what we are seeing as the four critical the critical areas of development, and that's the key to becoming an augmented version of yourself. So when we talk about AI, what are some of the things we talk about? Well, let me give you, these are some of the things that I use when I do AI at the moment. So those two videos you saw at the beginning, I use a thing called HeyGen. Yeah, I get asked to make a lot of explainers. Yeah, I get asked to do a lot of presentations. I sometimes can't be in the same place at once. And so but if I want to record a 30-minute soundbite for somebody, that can take me half an hour. Half an hour I don't have. So now I can just generate what I want to say. I can feed it to HeyGen, and you can have the avatar version of Chris talking you through Chris's thought. And that can go from 30 minutes to create for me to 5 minutes. Okay. If I need to send a verbal explainer to someone that I can't just record as a soundbite myself in a few minutes, I'll just chuck the script into HeyGen, and that saves me hours. And that can be on a weekly basis. You all know ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude. These are all tools that are have served different purposes. Obviously, ChatGPT is pretty much kind of the everything go-to. If you want cross-referencing and you want to go deeper into the into more of a search-based environment, I would rate Perplexity for that. And if you want to use AI for anything technical, then use Claude. Granola is the number one note taker that I've now been using, because what I find with Granola is it's something that can incorporate both AI notes and my own notes. I use Fireflies to attend meetings. If I have 3 meetings that are back to back that I can't attend, I use Fireflies to go to the ones that I can't be physically present in. Elicit, if you're doing research and you want to cross-reference sources, Elicit is specially designed for that. And then if you get caught on the back foot and you need to create a presentation from a meeting that you're arriving at in 5 minutes, Gamma can create your presentation on the back of the hoof. So for me, as a business leader, and as someone who gets involved in business development, in marketing, in product, this is the suite of tools that I use to make myself an augmented executive. And at the same time, none of these tools have required any specialist skill. However, it required me to think about how do they genuinely fit into my workflow in order to save me time. And then from there, with some of these tools, I'm finding now that I need to move information around. Yeah. So if I send something and then I want something else to happen because I get a reply or I get a certain, what you call in the technology world, a trigger, then one thing we're able to do now is we're able to, in terms of as an augmented person, if we map out what we do and when we do it, there are many, many things that we shouldn't necessarily have to manually do. And now you can use software like Make and Nan, databases like Airtable. Again, none of these need specialist skills, but you can use this to say things that you don't need to remember to do yourself. If you connect these with AI, they can just do it for you. Okay. And again, This is stuff I only started really looking at this last November. It took me about 3 or 4 months, and I would say now I'm comfortable to say that I'm able to operate in an augmented way. Say it was an investment in self-learning and time, but these are examples. These are all tools that I've shown you that you don't need any specialists, and none of these need to be used for payment. These can all be used for free. And these are things that are reply. If you're looking at, if you're a salesperson, or if you're talking with students who are going to be salespeople, or students who are interested in marketing, project management, design, this kind of thought process needs to underpin all of the conversations that we're having and the advice that we're giving to our young people. So how can you, if you're an educator, all of these things sound great, but it might also sound really, really new. And so how, as an educator, how can you stay ahead of the curve? And, there are so many places where you can go to find the information. As I said, remember back, I said collaboration is one of those top skills. So when you're looking at this, there are social networks, podcasts, articles. There are all of these different things, okay? But don't do those alone. As an educator, this should be your staff room conversation. This should be your day-to-day huddle with the colleagues that you collaborate with the most. Because the best thing that you can do, regardless of the source where you find this information, or regardless of the place where you like to go to get your learning and to get your new tips and tricks, the number one thing is to build habit around what you're doing. Okay, so don't, as an educator, with lots going on, with lots of students to take care of, with again working in a very kind of a disrupted daily pattern, there are many places you can get information from. Collaborate with your colleagues, but then the number one is turn it into a habit. Okay, keep doing it and just develop a habit around the different places where you get that from, and then collaborating with people to figure out how are we going to get this into our workflow, into the way that we do our job, and how can this influence and benefit our students. Okay, so the number one thing is form habit around what you're doing. And let's not forget as well, where you're the concepts I've been talking about today on the journey towards being an AI empowered and an augmented work executive, it's not only for tech classes. Okay, I've mentioned it in business. I expect every person that comes to our organization to be on top of how they're going to augment what they can do, their productivity and their work. Okay, it's in the world of work, it's for every function and every industry. And so in schools, it's got to be for every subject and every environment. Okay, it's not just a tech class. If you're teaching English, you're teaching history, you need to figure out how you can bring these technologies and tools into your classroom. Otherwise, those habits that I mentioned before that are so important for teachers, those are equally important for students, and they're not going to develop if it's only brought into a technology class. When students go forward, the next step, when they've got these capabilities and these skills, and if they've got their knowledge, but they need these capabilities in these skills, okay? If this type of learning is only in a technology class, it can't be relatable to all of the students in the class. I've been involved in academic studies that relate to the way that girls have taken interest in science and technology versus boys. Overwhelmingly, statistically, girls are more likely to take an interest where they are able to understand how these types of technologies can impact their community. And it's funny, if you look at the sciences, more girls statistically will take an interest if it's in a biology lesson than in a physics or a chemistry lesson. Okay, so again, you've got to take the skills and you've got to take the learning experience to where the students are at. It's got to be relatable. It's got to be immersive. Okay, you've got to explain it, understanding that transferable connection. Okay, so it's relatable with the context. These are real things. Explain to students these are real applications and real technologies, and this is something that's going to be expected of you in the real world. Because when it's relatable and transferable, you can then make it immersive. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're taking an interesting context, you see the real world relevant, and then the learning experience becomes relatable. We have an acronym called Learners Who Care as well nowadays. The ethics of AI, the ethics of what we do. I mean, goodness knows, my video avatar could be used for good and it could be used for bad. Yeah, it's so important that we nurture learners nowadays with our technology superpowers that we have. We must nurture those learners to be curious, adaptable, resilient, and empathetic. Yeah, they've got to be acutely aware of the positive and negative impact that they can create in the world from their actions in relation to the technologies that they're using. It's also really important when we're looking at this relatable, transferable, and immersive experience. This is something that goes toward, if you don't create this experience, this is something that has to go towards the decisions that students are making for themselves. So if these technology skills, which are fundamental to students being able to graduate ready to go out into the world, if they aren't integrated into that context in a relatable, transferable, and immersive way, then it's not going to come up for students in a way that they're feeling that it's informing them when they're coming to make their decisions. So when I'm a student and I'm thinking about where do I want to go next with my life, what interests do I want to pursue at a professional level, yeah, then these technologies need to be an intuitive part of that decision-making process. Okay, so it needs to be relatable, transferable, immersive in order to go into the powerful decisions that students make, which are those decisions that they're making, which have a longitudinal impact on the doors and the pathways that are available to them. And a lot of the time, what we see with educators is all educators are perfectly capable and they can make the time to bring these types of skills and capabilities into their practice. A lot of the time, it's a question of confidence. Yeah, a lot of this is new. The technology awareness of educators has been horribly underinvested in the last 20 years or 30 years. Okay, and it's now because it's such an imperative, it's got to be caught up. So I think one of these things is there needs to be room for educators. Educators need to be able to make room for themselves. What we said, collaborate with our colleagues, build good habits. But at the same time, there needs to be space here so educators can try these kind of tools across the learning experiences, and they can be allowed to succeed and they can also be allowed to fail. The outcomes, if you put in a relatable, transferable, and immersive pathway, if you introduce these types of technologies across all subjects, you will increase the pipelines of students. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you've got the greatest tech program in the world. If it's not relatable, transferable, and immersive, no one's going to choose to pursue it. Yeah. So, and of course, if you're implementing technology across all subjects, you're naturally increasing the pipeline of students. So you need to increase the pipeline of students. Improve comfort working with technology and technologists. Part of the first experience of it for a student in working with other people who are technologists is both their peers, so other students, and also with educators. If they see you, they develop that familiar. They see you as a technologist, they develop that familiar experience of working with technologists. And then, of course, going back, relatable, transferable, immersive, the students must understand from multi-contextual implementation, from this becoming an intuitive part of their workflow, then they'll also see how this is transferable to their future environment. So this is at BSD, one of the things we look at is we look at the skills development. So where we have if you're familiar with us already, every students go through a learning experience of explore, learn, create. We have digital skills programs, entrepreneurship programs. We look at courses for professional behaviors and skills. Okay. And what we say there is we look at that from 8 to 14 of students developing independent creativity with these skills. Yeah. And with those digital skills programs, that includes how to use AI tools. Once students have developed that independent creativity and they start to think about where they're going to go in the world, 15 to 18, they should be tapping into internships through us. Okay. At that point, students can go to companies remotely and do real project with those companies and build a professional network for themselves. Okay. Where that AI is putting pressure on graduate hiring, yeah, you can't just rely on your CV. You need to rely on the confidence and people being willing to take a chance on you. You have to have students need to take ownership and responsibility for developing their professional networks. And then we need to be in a position where we can be informed as educators, and students can be informed about the career decisions and pathways that they're taking. Yeah. So the way we do that, of course, many of the educators I come across, they say, I'm not a techie and I've never worked in the business world. So all of this stuff seems very difficult to me. So for the skills side, we provide an online platform. It only takes 90 minutes as an educator to onboard. You get full access to a comprehensive curriculum, and you're supported all along the way. Okay, and we are a very, very affordable solution. As a school as well, never been in the business world, can't develop a network of companies. Don't worry, we've also covered that. We've got over 300 companies we work for. We have students at schools taking internships through us in 12 different countries. Yeah, we've had over 600 interns. We'll have over 1,000 this year. And so these are projects that students can do either alongside their studies or they can do them during holidays. But again, this is something that isn't necessarily easy or within the playbook of a school to achieve. So, we've got that supported. We can match the students to projects, connect them to the companies, and then we can support you as a school to help your students develop not only that immersive experience, but also the professional network that they're going to need to go forward in their futures. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because I know we've got just about 10 minutes left. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has for anything that we've gone through. The session is also recorded, so if there was anything that you struggled to understand or that you want to re-listen to, we will be sharing. We will share the recording, and so you will be able to come back and to recap on anything that I've gone through. But please do, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has right now. No questions? Okay. Beth, anything from your side? Anything on your chat?
No questions on my side, no.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much to everyone for attending today. I hope what I've gone through is helpful. I said I will be sharing the presentation. We'll share the recording. And any of you guys that want to, that have got any other questions that you want to ask, please do drop us a line, let us know, and happy to share our experience. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Charlotte.